It's less than 2 weeks until the Premier League season starts up again for the 2024-25 campaign, but as is always the case in the summer, a lot of focus is still on the transfer window and the players, or in this case lack of players, that have yet to come into the club, particularly Tottenham. There is one significant name that is on everybody's minds at the moment who's been linked to the club, and recent reports suggest that Spurs are trying to accelerate a deal for him, and that is Bournemouth's Dominic Solanke. Tottenham have been linked with a whole host of strikers over the summer transfer window, and it looks like Ange has finally settled on Solanke, who of course we all know had a brilliant campaign for Bournemouth last season. The news has sparked mixed reactions on social media. Some people think it could be a brilliant signing, while others are suggesting that it's not ambitious enough. So my job here today is to present the facts and give you the reasons why Solanke would be a good fit at Tottenham, but also why there are some concerns about the signing. But first, if you are new around here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you enjoy it. We are closing in on 500 subscribers, which was my goal before the season started, and the fact that we are so close to hitting that goal, it makes me incredibly happy. So any extra support on the channel would be absolutely amazing. So, Dominic Solanke, where do we start? Could he be a fantastic signing for Spurs? Is he really the answer to Harry Kane? Is he even better than Richarlison? They are all valid questions, and I'm going to attempt to answer each and every one of them in this video. The most important stat we need to know going into this is how many goals has Solanke scored in the Premier League. Now, of course, before he played for Bournemouth, he did start out at Liverpool, where I think he only scored one Premier League goal in a lot of appearances, so it makes the figures that I'm about to tell you look a little bit depressing. It's 134 Premier League games. Dominic Solanke has scored 29 goals, including 13 assists on top of that as well. However, the thing that you have to consider is that 19 of those came for Bournemouth last season under Iraola. So, over a 38 game season in England's top division of football, over half of his total Premier League goals, bear in mind he's 26 years old now, have come in a single campaign. Season before that, he only managed 6 goals and 7 assists, so it is the first sort of breakout campaign that he's had in the Premier League, and it is the first time a lot of people are starting to stop and look at him and go, this fella's actually a pretty decent striker. Now, I just mentioned that he is 26 years old and he is closing in on 27. He turns it in a couple of weeks' time at the start of September. However, I want to raise this point to you. You would expect a striker to be hitting the peak of their career at around the 27-year-old mark. And funnily enough, that is what Dominic Solanke is about to be. Let's consider this. Harry Kane, who left for Bayern Munich last season, he is 31 years old now. So let's say that he was 30 for most of the last campaign. He scored 44 goals in all competitions. In his last season for Tottenham, when he was 29 years old, he still bagged 30 goals in the Premier League and 32 overall across the entire season. We know that Harry Kane is the bar for other strikers, and of course his numbers are going to look amazing compared to anyone else, especially Solanke. However, I'm just trying to prove the point to you. You do not need to be 24, 25 years old to be your best. One of the big issues that people have with someone like Dominic Solanke is that they'll say, okay, he scored 19 goals this season, but he did it for Bournemouth. It's nothing too impressive. Well, you could argue that is more impressive. Whereas Harry Kane's been playing at Bayern Munich, one of the best teams in Europe, and obviously banging in the goals, Dominic Solanke has been playing for a bottom half Premier League club and still performing to an elite level. It sort of counteracts the argument for those that support the signing of, let's say, Victor Gyökeres from Sporting Lisbon, who, not taking it away from him, has had an amazing campaign, but has not really had that experience in the Premier League. He had a good season for Coventry and that's what earned him his move, but Dominic Solanke's arguably impressed at a higher level than that. So what's the difference really? Gyökeres performed for Coventry in the Championship and now he's played well in the Portuguese League. Dominic Solanke has proved that he can score a ton of goals in the Premier League. If you switch him into that Spurs side and you surround him with more quality players and you have the likes of James Maddison feeding him and Heung-min Son playing alongside him, would you not argue that he would get more opportunities and potentially score even more goals than he did last season? The next point I want to make is about him suiting Ange Postecoglou's style and system, which he does almost perfectly. If you think what he does at Bournemouth is impressive now, think about how he would adapt to Ange's system, which includes high pressing, always making sure you're in the box and focusing on crosses or low crosses into the box for a striker to be there and to tap home. We know that Ange likes his aggressive football, and I've got a really interesting stat to give you right now about Solanke. It pretty much proves that he would be the perfect fit for what Ange wants to do in the final third. By January 2024, Dominic Solanke had 288 individual presses in the final third of the pitch. At that point, so around the halfway stage of the season, no Premier League player had made more pressing actions than Dominic Solanke in the final third. And then if you look at the season before that, so the 2022-23 season, he clocked over 1,100 pressing actions. He is a monster at trying to win the ball back high up the pitch. That will be something that is music to Ange Postecoglou's ears, and it's not surprising that perhaps that is why he wants to bring him in so badly. He wants to prove himself at that top level, and of course, what better way to do that than in a project that's in the middle of being built with a team that are notoriously wanting to prove themselves recently because of how long they've gone without winning a trophy. Spurs have been quoted around £65 million to get Solanke away from the Cherries this summer, which is a lot of money for someone that has only really had one proven good goal-scoring campaign in the Premier League. Yes, Solanke has the qualities, and yes, he does have the goals, but can he do that on a consistent basis? That is when you start to pay the high figures for those types of players. I feel like we sort of made a bit of a mistake paying nearly 60 million for Richarlison, someone who has never scored more than 13 goals in an individual Premier League campaign. Of course, we know that Dominic Solanke has gone above and beyond that, so it does make that decision a little bit easier, but Richarlison has always averaged those sorts of numbers every season, whereas it's different in this case with Solanke because he's only really ever done it once. So is £65 million worth it? I'm not entirely sure it is, but I've said this from the beginning and I will preach it until the day that Ange Postecoglou leaves. If it's a player that he wants in and is desperate to sign, I'm all for us going out and just spending what it takes to bring someone of that quality in. Yes, okay, perhaps you could focus on someone like Gyökeres or Jimenez or David or Tony instead. Ange just said this summer that he is very focused on bringing in his primary targets and that he does not want to waver away from that. And that is another reason why if Solanke is the chosen man, you simply have to try and get behind it and back it as well. And we know as well that Tottenham are in the market for another wide player, and a name mostly being linked to North London at the moment is Pedro Neto from Wolves. Of course, if you bring someone like that in alongside Dominic Solanke, and then all of a sudden you could have, say, a front three of Solanke, Neto and Heung-min Son, that's a lot of quality in the final third. And Solanke also suits the likes of James Maddison in a squad, one of our chief creators. I think we saw it once before Harry Kane left where James Maddison whipped a ball into Harry Kane and he headed it home in a pre-season friendly. That is the type of way that Dominic Solanke will like to play as well. And if I haven't given you enough reasons, another thing is the wingers. I've seen time and time again the likes of Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, whoever it may be, get up those flanks, drive to the byline and cross it in, low or high, wherever it may be. Most of Solanke's goals come from inside the penalty box, in particular those traditional poaching areas of the pitch. That includes inside the 6-yard box or in front of the penalty spot. And coincidentally, that is where most of our plays end up getting put if the ball falls to our wingers who are trying to deliver something in. And what's so brilliant about it is that Solanke is great at holding the ball up and playing with his back to goal, so he can always lay it off and we can play down the channels, or he can also get in behind. He is not slow. In fact, last season he clocked a speed of 36.1 kilometers an hour. For some context, Mickey van der Ven, who we know is lightning quick, clocked a 37.38 speed last term. So from my perspective, Solanke is looking like an all-round striker who ticks all of the boxes. I guess another big question you could ask, is he a big game player? Can he pick us up the points and the winning goals if we need him to when we are struggling? For Bournemouth last season, he won them 15 points with his winning goals alone, more than any other player in the division. I think the second was Ollie Watkins. So there is clear evidence that Solanke has all of the traits that Tottenham need to become a better team than what they were last season. season. And the final point that I want to make, Solanke would count as a homegrown player. I don't like the idea that you have to consider these things when making signings to improve your starting 11, but again, it's another box that could be ticked by bringing him in. Solanke would add to that homegrown quota that we need to fill at the start of each season. I want to finish this video off by saying I don't want to tell you how to think about players that may or may not be coming to Tottenham. I sort of wanted to try and present a balanced argument on Solanke. However, my overall opinion weighs more towards it would be a more positive signing than a more negative one. Of course, you're all entitled to your opinion, and I would love to have a debate in the comments about what you think. Is someone else that we should be signing? Should we simply just go for Ivan Toney instead? Or is Solanke perhaps the one that can take us to that next level and be an improvement on the likes of Richarlison? Does it also open the door for someone like Will Lancashire to come into a squad and get first team minutes next season? Now, of course, I think there's still a lot of work to be done on the deal, mainly with the price tag that Bournemouth have set for Solanke. It may still be a few days or even weeks before something more comes out of this. I wanted to get ahead of the game and just give my opinion and some statistics on what Dominic Solanke is like and the sort of impact that he could have in a Tottenham team rather than at Bournemouth. But once again, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope I've given you some insight and perhaps maybe even changed some of your opinions on the type of player Dominic Solanke is. If you enjoyed it, please do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to help us keep growing, and I will keep churning out the Tottenham content as we approach the start of the season. For now, that is it from me, and as always, I want to say enjoy the rest of your week, and as always, come on you Spurs.